Unspoken, Book 1 of the Obsidian Reach by HopeHappy. Chapter 2. The Architect's Debt. The fog came in from the Obsidian Reach before sunrise and did not lift. By the time Elena reached the Aurelian, the tower's upper floors had disappeared into it entirely, and the lobby concierge, a man she had hired herself 8 months ago, did not meet her eyes. She had expected that. She had expected most of what the morning was going to do. She had lain awake in the dark from 3 to 5 and run through the order of operations the way she had taught herself to run through any crisis. Identify the instrument of leverage, identify the party holding it, identify the concession that looked like surrender and functioned as delay. By the time the sky had started to gray, she had arrived at a working assumption. Julian Thorne had come back with something. It was her job in the next hour to find out what. She took the executive elevator to the 42nd floor. She had taken the same elevator 600 times in the last year and a half. She had stood in it beside Leo Thorne while he talked, with the particular enthusiasm he reserved for buildings, about the way the morning light moved through the lobby skylights between March and June. She remembered the way his voice rose when he talked about it, the way he apologized halfway through for boring her, the way she had said he wasn't boring her and meant it and hated herself for meaning it. The elevator chimed at the 42nd floor, and she stepped out into the executive corridor and walked toward the doors she had walked toward every morning for 18 months, and she did not permit herself to notice that her pulse had climbed. She pushed the doors open. The office had been stripped overnight. Leo's photographs were gone. The citrus wax was gone. The pale blue throw that had been draped over the back of the reading chair for 14 months was gone. What remained was the room's architecture, the obsidian desk, the floor-to-ceiling window, the charcoal carpet, and behind the desk, Julian. He was writing. He did not look up. "You're 3 minutes late," he said. "Your watch is fast." He paused. He finished the line he was writing, capped the pen, set it down square with the edge of the blotter, and looked at her. The light from the window was behind him, so she saw first what the light did and then what his face did. The light did nothing. It passed around him and lit the room at oblique angles and left him in a silhouette that made it difficult for a moment to read him. His face, when she could see it, was not the face she had prepared for either time she had seen him, not last night's exhaustion, and not the cold she had rehearsed on the drive over. What she saw was patience. A man who had slept badly and decided not to make it her problem. A man who had all morning. "Sit," he said. "No." He did not repeat it. He did not insist. He pushed a gold-embossed folder across the desk in her direction and leaned back in the chair that had been Leo's, and he waited. Elena crossed to the desk. She did not sit. She opened the folder standing, which meant she was reading at an awkward angle, and Julian did not offer to turn it toward her, and she understood that the angle was the point. The top document was an emergency injunction from the Oak Haven Superior Court, issued at 6:14 that morning. The second was a certified copy of the Thorne Family Trust. The third was an instrument of appointment naming Julian Thorne interim conservator of the disputed corporate assets pending investigation. She read the first page of the trust and stopped reading. She had missed it. She had spent 6 months on the Sterling acquisition, and she had missed it. The trust had been drafted by Julian and Leo's grandfather. It did not hold the company. It held the land. Every square meter of the acreage the Aurelian sat on, every slab of cliff face masonry, every foot of harbor frontage. All of it was held in a trust whose sole trustee, by the clause she was now rereading to be sure, was the eldest surviving male descendant of the original settler. The company Marcus had bought sat on land it did not own. She kept her face still. She set the folder down. "Sterling's lawyers will argue adverse possession," she said. "A century of occupancy. They'll file within 72 hours. Let them. You'll lose on the substance if you lose the hearing. Adverse possession requires exclusivity. The trust has permitted the company to operate on the land under an implicit license for 3 generations. Competent counsel will argue the license was irrevocable. Mine will argue that the license was conditional on the trust's continuing belief in the company's good faith, and that Leo's death under the circumstances alleged constitutes grounds for revocation. And mine will win." She looked up at him. "You've been working on this for 2 years." "I've been working on this since my brother died." There was nothing in the way he said it, no emphasis, no performance of grief. He might have been giving her the time the post office opened. Elena heard, underneath the flatness, the quality of a sentence a man has said aloud so many times in his own head that when he finally says it in a room, he no longer feels it land. She recognized the register because she had one of her own. She closed the folder. "What do you want?" "Sterling," Julian said. "Dismantled, publicly, by the person who built him." "And in exchange?" "You keep breathing. That's not enough, and you know it." He looked at her for a long moment then. He had not yet stood up from the chair. He reached into the inside pocket of his jacket and produced a small white card, the size of a credit card, and he held it up between 2 fingers so that she could see the crest. It was an Ethelgard Institute patient identifier. The pressure that Elena had been holding under her sternum since 3 in the morning resolved very quickly into cold. "Sterling was paying," Julian said, "through a medical debt consolidator. I bought the consolidator at 6:15 this morning. Your mother's invoices now route through a Thorn entity. Her physician of record was notified at 7. Her medications continue, her room continues, her care continues." "For how long?" "For as long as you're useful. And if I'm not. Then her care is routed to a publicly funded facility by the end of the business day. I'm told the waiting list for cardiac consultations there runs into months." She said nothing. She was aware that her hand had closed around the edge of the desk. She was aware of the specific grain of the obsidian under her palm. She was aware in a way that was almost detached that a decision was being made somewhere in her body that her conscious mind had not yet been invited to. "You replaced Marcus's leash," she said. "I replaced Marcus. With a cleaner version of Marcus." Something moved, briefly, at the corner of his mouth. It was not a smile. It was the place where a smile, in some other man, might have formed. "No," he said, "with the version that was going to come for him anyway." He stood. He did not move around the desk quickly. He walked. There was no theatrical pause, no charged approach. He walked to the end of the desk the way a man walks across his own office, because it was his own office. And he stopped there and he turned to face her, and the distance between them was the width of a filing cabinet. "I need to show you something," he said. "I don't want to see anything." "I didn't ask." He crossed to the recessed monitor on the far wall and pressed a button. The screen woke. The image was not one she had seen before. Leo, in this office, in the reading chair by the window, filmed from a phone propped somewhere off to the side. The light in the image was the pale, flat light of late afternoon. Leo was wearing a sweater she recognized. He looked tired. He did not look theatrical. He looked like a man who had been awake for a day and a half and had decided to record something, because he did not trust himself to say it later. "Julian," Leo said, "I don't know if you'll watch this. You haven't returned a call in over a year. I'm going to assume you will eventually. I wanted to explain what I did because I don't trust anyone else to explain it accurately, and I don't want Mom to hear it from a lawyer." He stopped. He looked off to the side, at nothing. He came back. "I signed the merger documents. I know I shouldn't have. Elena brought them to me and she asked me to. And I read them and I signed them, because I wanted to be the one she had picked. I was very stupid about her, Julian. I'm sorry, I don't know what else to say about it." He paused again. His hand came up and rubbed the bridge of his nose. "Tell Mom I love her. Tell her." He stopped. He looked directly at the camera for the first time. "Tell her I was not afraid. That's a lie, but tell her anyway." The recording ended. The office was quiet in the particular way a room is quiet after a voice that has been filling it is no longer filling it. Elena had not moved. She was standing at the corner of the desk where she had been standing when Julian crossed the room, and she could feel the grain of the obsidian under her palm, and she could feel the distance of the filing cabinet between them, and she could not for a moment remember what she had been planning to say. "He trusted me," she said. "Yes." "And I asked him." "Yes." She did not look at him. She did not look at the screen. She looked at a point on the carpet about 2 feet in front of her, and she made her face do nothing at all. "I need a moment," she said. "You don't have one. Julian. The board convenes in 45 minutes. You'll be with me. You'll confirm to them on the record the structural fraud of the Sterling transaction and the irregularities in the authorization chain leading to the signing of the merger documents. You'll do this from the floor. You will not sit. And after. After we discuss the rest." She nodded once. She did not trust her voice. He crossed back to her. He did not hurry. He stopped at the same filing cabinet distance he had stopped at before, and he did something then that she had not prepared for because she had prepared for cruelty, and what he did was smaller than cruelty and harder to defend against. He lifted his hand and drew a loose piece of her hair back behind her ear. The backs of his fingers brushed the skin of her temple. The contact lasted perhaps a second and a half. She did not flinch. She did not lean into it. She registered, with the same cold precision she had used to read the trust, that her pulse had responded before her mind had, and that Julian had felt it respond, because his hand had been at her temple when it did. He lowered his hand. "There's a box on the table in your dressing room," he said. "Wear the red." "Why?" "Because when you walk into that boardroom beside me, every person at that table will understand, without anyone saying anything, what the arrangement is. You are good at making people understand things without saying them. That's what I'm paying for, and that's it done. You're not paying me. I'm paying your mother's bills. Same arrangement, different creditor." He turned and walked back to the desk. He sat down. He uncapped the pen and resumed whatever he had been writing when she came in. He did not look up when she left. In the corridor, she stopped and pressed her palm flat against the wall, which was cool, and she stood for a count of 10, and then she walked to the dressing room to see what color of red he had chosen. It was the color of old blood. It was a color a woman could wear to a funeral if she wanted the room to understand whose funeral it was. She understood him perfectly.